This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you, and we have a packed show today. Lots going on in and around the Winnipeg Jets at training camp, and good news. We can stop talking about Cole Perfetti contract negotiations and start talking about Cole Perfetti on the ice with his teammates because the young Lion signed a 2-year extension with the Winnipeg Jets last night and was back on the ice today with his teammates. We'll be all over it. Mike McIntyre is going to join us a little later on. He is all over it on the Jets beat, was at the Hockey for All Center for the return of Cole today. Sounds like the Jets were doing quite a bit of special teams work today in training camp, so we'll get to that. Cuts made today, a first round of cuts for the Winnipeg Jets, which we'll get into as well. And, of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers back on the practice field getting ready for the rematch against the Edmonton Elks on Friday at Princess Auto Stadium. Big news coming out of Edmonton in the last hour. MBT, McLeod Bethel Thompson, will be the starting quarterback for Edmonton in a game that they desperately need to have to keep their playoff hopes alive while the Saskatchewan Roughriders, who they're chasing, host the Ottawa Red Blacks. So we're going to be all over it. Of course, the big story today is the Perfetti deal. Dave Pagnotta is going to join us coming up. He, of course, had Cole out at his golf tournament earlier this summer. Has got to know him quite well. We'll get his take on this, what this means for any other RFAs. Well, one particular RFA situation in Boston it's looking sort of ugly, as well as details on the new Amazon Prime Monday Night Hockey and Thursday Hockey content for hockey fans. Dave was at the launch of this yesterday in Toronto, so we'll find out about that. Mike McIntyre coming on a little later on. And then, before we do our final picks for Assiniboia Downs of the year, got to bring in our pal Darren Dunn. Just quickly talk about the season overall. Lots of ups and downs at Assiniboia Downs. But tonight, a mandatory payout, including an extra $236,000 in the jackpot Pick 5 pool. So we'll find out what that is, how to get in on it, and we'll make our picks a little bit later on. Of course, we'll get to our cool bet lines. Lines in the CFL and NFL are out. But speaking of cool bet, tonight is the night. The Lock Shop, Winnipeg Sports Talk, Edmonton Sports Talk, our second poker event in the poker series. If you like online poker and would like to play with us and try and earn a $100 bounty for eliminating me, Remis, Dustin Nielsen, or Matt Iwanek, get over to CoolBet, click on poker, download the poker app, and then search in tournaments, Lock Shop, and make sure to get it. It's a $30 buy-in, 20 euros. And as I mentioned, $100 bounties on the 4 people that I just mentioned. We had such a great time last time doing it. We had about 60, 65 players. Hopefully we'll get more than that tonight. So if you were in it before, hopefully you'll join us again. And if you missed out, tonight's the night. It starts at 9 p.m. Winnipeg time and 8 p.m. out in Edmonton. If you go to my Twitter, at Hustlerama, I've boosted the Cool Bet post on it, just with some details on how to find it, how to enter. And I do know that Michael Remis, who's going to be joining us in just a moment, is fired up after his big second-place finish the first time we did it. Just before we bring in Reem, shout out to everyone listening on the podcast. Thanks for making us a part of your day, and welcome to the gang hanging out in the YouTube chat. Live with us here today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. A big thanks to all of our sponsors. New CFL 110 is up a little earlier than normal as I'm heading to Montreal. Hammer's away for a few days. You can go to the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel and check that out. It, of course, is brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. I want to thank CoolBet. Don't forget the poker tourney tonight. Huge thanks to Princess Auto for their support, Rolly's Transfer, Consolidated Supply and Manitoba Battery, Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets, Little Brown Jug, the Gold Eyes, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodges, Assiniboia Downs, and of course, Breezy Bend. And we will get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. A wanted man tonight in the poker tourney. Second place finisher Michael Remis joins me now. What's going on?
Yeah, the reigning EST, WST poker champion. Tell that to your friends at Edmonton Sports Talk. I hear there's some big heads out there, Huss. Let's go.
Iwonic is
right here.
There is so much trash talk going on at the EST office about this event tonight.
They couldn't even ask me to come on to trash talk everyone. The real poker champion just sitting here silently ready.
Well, you were second.
Tonight.
You were second. I mean, you're basically pulling on Iwonic as well right now by claiming to be the champion when you, in fact, lost in the final. You did have a great performance. You have the number one ranking of the power poll amongst everyone at WST and EST.
That's right.
But do you remember who it was that took you out?
Not important. No, of course not.
The person that won? No, we don't even need to mention
Who cares about that guy? Yeah, who cares? We care about the person that matters. Me beating everyone at Winnipeg Sports Talk. I mean, that's just you. And Edmonton. Dominated all of them. Beat Iwonic in the final table. I'm pumped for round 2 tonight.
Well, now Remis is coming in all cocky. Another reason why you can go at him early and often. And if you take him out, you will get $100 the first time. I mean, we do have the option to rebuy if we want to in the first hour. The bounties are in effect from the get-go for Iwonic, Dusty, Remis, and myself. So we'll talk about it a little bit more and get you ready for it when we do the cool bet lines. But right off the top of the show, I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware this is happening tonight. 9 p.m. we get going. Join us. It should be a hell of a fun time. Remo, as I mentioned in the open, we now move forward. Cole Perfetti is signed with the Winnipeg Jets. Deal got done last night. Cole back at camp today. All smiles. A 2-year deal, averaging $3.25 million. $3 million this year. 3.5 next year. 3.5 million will be the qualifying offer for the Winnipeg Jets to retain Cole Perfetti's rights. I kind of did think this might be a little more than the 3.25 that he ended up getting on the AAV. We knew it was going to be somewhere in between 3 and 4, and I think for most people, it's just a relief to have this done. Maybe no more than Cole Perfetti, who actually gets a chance to get back on the ice with his teammates while sitting out for the first few days of camp waiting for this to get done.
Yeah, we kind of figured they had to get done soon. I get missing the start of training camp. You know, you miss the first 2 preseason games where you don't really have veterans, but he needs to be out there for his team. And if it was going to be a bridge deal, he needs to have a good season so he can set up his next contract when we revisit this conversation in 2 years, or maybe, I don't know, maybe immediately after July 1. But yeah, good for them to finally figure it out and get it done. I was looking at what AFP Analytics, which Daily Faceoff uses. Their projection was like 3.05 million over 2 years, and I think 5.5 for a 7-year deal.
It's 5.88 on a 7-year deal. I was surprised at that number. I would have thought that if they were going to go 7, you were looking at 6.25, 6.5, something like that. But again, you know, a lot of these models, they'll take in all the information and crank out, you know, their estimates based on, you know, their inputs. And, you know, let's just say that the team's measurables and variables might be a little different than the agents. And, you know, we'll ask Dave how this got done because, you know, as Scott Billick reported, it did come together quickly. According to Scott, Winnipeg's initial offer was well under what Perfetti finally signed for. What was interesting, and this, I'm not sure what we take away from this, but a long-term deal reportedly was never really put in front of Perfetti. And I think there is an element from the organization to sort of play this out and wait and see. And for a lot of people, I know it was sort of put out there that, well, Cole Perfetti is looking for the prove-it deal. In a lot of ways, the team sort of offered a prove-it deal. And listen, best case scenario for Cole, and I think everyone, is that he goes in, has 2 great seasons, and the Winnipeg Jets maybe regret not doing a longer-term deal now, but pay the price on a young player that's turning into, a very important star player in the National Hockey League. I think that is a potential. We haven't seen it yet, certainly not for a full season. And last year, Remo, as you laid out, really sort of the tale of 2 halves for Cole Perfetti. An amazing first half of the season and some real struggles in the second. And that's why I think it's sort of a wait and see from the team and maybe from the player and the agent as far as how this is going to work out.
Yeah, for the Jets, they get him at a low cap hit for the next 2 seasons, 3.25. They do have $2.5 million in cap space this year. Will they use it, or will they accrue more to make a bigger move at the deadline? And next year, a number of contracts coming off the books to have Perfetti at that number will be beneficial. However, you think that if he performs, this season and next season like he did the first 40 games of last year, that contract might double and you're going to be paying more later. Maybe you could have locked him in longer term for, a $5 or $6 million AAV, but they didn't want to do that. They didn't make the offer, and they do have some wiggle room this year. And you talk about the tale of 2 seasons. We'll just look at Perfetti's career. 140 career NHL games, 75 points in last year's total numbers, 19 goals, 19 assists in 71 games. For the first 40 games of the year, 14 goals, 15 assists, 29 points. That's .725 points per game, about 59 over an 82-game season. But he hit a wall from January 11 to the end of the year, 31 games. He had 9 points in those 31 games and 23 games without a goal, where he only had 2 assists, was -7. And he was only on us for, during those 23 games, only on for 4 goals, 4 at 5-on-5, 8 against. And being on the ice for 4 goals at even strength was pretty much the worst among regulars. So he certainly earned that, the benching for a bit to reset. But when he came back, he was solid, and I would expect more of the first 40 games than the final stretch. But hey, he had improved it, and we looked at other comparables like Dawson Mercer. Those guys have proved it with 82-game seasons. Perfetti was injured the first 2 games, and I think because he came up in with these guys who were drafted around the COVID era, didn't play full seasons, kind of hindered their development a bit. Maybe took a bit longer to come along. You saw that with Quinton Byfield. I think he's going to be just fine going forward. This is a nice deal for both sides, but Perfetti's got a chance here now to earn a bit of a pay raise in the next one when we can do this all over again in 2 years.
Yeah, and listen, I'm sure we'll hear from Cole at some point over the course of today, and we'll have that for you on tomorrow's show if it's not available before.
There it is.
A big scrum around the smiling forward. He's got his new deal. Everyone there, some big, long mic stands as well. They had to get back, so they got some good TV room. But listen, Cole Perfetti's got his deal, and most importantly, he's back on the ice right now because, in his situation, there's a huge opportunity, but you got to be there, and you got to take advantage of this right now. And I think there probably was some semblance of urgency from the Perfetti side to get this done and to get out to camp. So some great news last night. Cole Perfetti's back for 2 years, and now we focus in on where he fits into this Winnipeg Jets roster as pretty much a lock to start the season off in the top 6. And today we got a little bit of a look at power play units and some PK early on. We'll hear from Scott Arniel whether this is just, the way he's planning on starting it or whether this is just a initial practice. But before we even get to practice, Remo, we should touch on the first wave of cuts by the Winnipeg Jets. They had the teams separated into 2 groups yesterday. The B group was cut down significantly. Assigned to the Manitoba Moose was Chaz Lucius, who at least has been out there, has been playing, didn't get into game action, but seems to be coming around and, is able to play right now. And obviously he started off the rookie camp in the non-contact jersey. They're being very careful with Chaz. Fingers crossed that he's just able to get out there, play, and have a good season, because there's a ton of potential there. We just haven't seen him on the ice enough. Henry Nikkanen and Danny Zhilkin also assigned to the Moose today. 4 players were on PTOs. Many of them will end up with the Manitoba Moose. Dylan Anhorn, Dawson Barteau, Ashton Sautner, and Ben King. And then back to junior is Kieran Walton, Marcus Lopinen, Connor Levis, Jacob Julian, and Kevin He. Julian, I thought, looked good. Kevin He, to be honest, Remo, of the players that were picked in last year's draft, I thought he really acquitted himself well. He has a lot of speed, was hungry on pucks in the drills that he was going on, ended up getting on the score sheet in the preseason game. I'm not sure if there was a player that, listen, when you're picked in the mid to late rounds, you come in just looking to get noticed. And Kevin, he was very noticeable right now. Looking forward to following him through this year of junior hockey and see what he looks like next year in his second year in the organization.
Yeah, Kevin, he getting a lot of praise for his tenacity, aggressiveness on pucks, but he's only 18 years old, drafted in the 4th round, 109th overall this year in Vegas. And, he's best for him for his development to go back to junior. Played 2 years with Niagara, entering his 3rd year. Last year, 53 points in 64, building off his first season where he had 34 points in 66 games. So, he wasn't going to make the team. He definitely, raised some eyebrows, I think, with his play. But, he's got a bit of a road here before he can make an impact with the organization. And the best thing to send him back, but say, hey, you know what? You got into a preseason game. You look pretty good. So certainly encouraging. And a guy that, Jacob Julian had a great season in junior last year too. So, nice learning experience for him here. But as you move towards the season, you want to have guys who may have a shot. I was kind of surprised to see some other names sticking around, and you can kind of see, okay, who's Group A, who's Group B. But first was the cuts, and Group B. Sorry, I got to do the right numbers. Group B now, they started with 20, and then 8 cuts. They only had 12 skaters out there.
Yeah,
and 2 of them were goalies.
Yeah, 2 of them were goalies. Well, this is, it's still remaining Group B is Milic and Divinchentis, Simon Lundmark, Dmitry Kuzmin, Tyrell Bauer, Daniel Torgerson, Colby Barlow, and Parker Ford. Interestingly, to note that Parker Ford was the last cut last year for the Winnipeg Jets on deadline day, and not in Group A. Group A has basically last year's Winnipeg Jets team, all the returning guys, but Elias Salmonson's still skating with the big group, Brad Lambert, Chibrikov, and while Colby Barlow's with the B group, Braden Yeager-Remis is still with Group A, and I found that interesting. I think they're going to try and give this young man a long look with the top guys, even if the plan is still to have him go back to junior this year. He's obviously opened some eyes and earning some more looks and, playing alongside the guys that will make up the majority of the Winnipeg Jet roster.
Yeah, I was just looking at the groups, putting these notes together, and Parker Ford was the darling of training camp last year, but he is on the B group. Maybe a little surprised, but not really to see Barlow on the B group, but I think that makes sense. Yeager is a bit older. Him, Chibrikov, and Lambert, the young guys, and Salamonson. Will one of them make the big club, or will they all go to the Moose, or in Yeager's case, the junior team? Those are the young guys on Group A. The rest are veterans. There's a lot of forwards in Group A, Huss, and they're only going to carry 13. So I'm curious who the cuts are going to be. Will Lambert and Chibrikov make their way to the final table of cuts, to use a poker term? But something we'll be following in the reality show that is Winnipeg Jets training camp.
I like that analogy of making it to, you get to the bubble.
Yeah.
And then you're at least in the money, and then it's about getting to that final table. And that is somewhat those final cuts. And certainly based on everything that we've seen of the younger players, I think Brad Lambert is the clear favorite to start the season with the Winnipeg Jets. Depending on health of other players, Chibrikov, I think, would be a guy that if there was openings in the bottom six, may very well have an opportunity. But Brad Lambert, I think, clearly up. And then, Elias Salmonson, who can go to the Moose, probably likely that he goes there, but you do wonder, does the injury to Ville Heinola, albeit Ville on the left side, Elias on the right side, potentially open up an opportunity to start the season with the big club? We'll see. Of course, Hayden Fleury, I think the likely seventh defenseman, assuming Ville's out for a period of time to begin the year. But he'll have an opportunity to continue competing with the big players and, get into a little bit more preseason action, I would assume. And, of course, Braden Yeager, as I mentioned, coming over in the Rucker-McGroarty trade, still with the club and still with the NHL regulars in Group A. Mike is going to join us after we talk to Pagnotta, Dave. But an interesting tidbit from Mike, speaking with Scott Arniel, the head coach, and he revealed that Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor will be used as penalty killers this season. And he says Nikolai Ehlers could see some PK time as well. Says it's part of wanting to be more aggressive, and offensive players, quote, this is according to Mike, have good instincts. Listen, that's a really interesting. I'll throw this out. We're going to talk about this with Mike, but let me put the why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray out to you all in the chat right now. Well, what do you think about that idea of having Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele, two guys that I don't think have ever really been in any Selke conversation, to be killing penalties? Certainly they add an offensive dynamic when they have the puck that, with a little bit of extra space could be damaging. Do you think they can get the job done actually on the PK? Interested in your thoughts on that. Include Ehlers in that group as well while we are at it. And speaking of special teams, Remo, today, sounds like there was a big-time focus on both the power play and the penalty kill today. And, admittedly, Perfetti just got here and will mix in. He's not going to play on Wednesday. He will play Friday. But the first power play unit had Ehlers on the left side and Scheifele on the bumper. So Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, Morrissey, and Velarde in that first power play unit.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. I'll start with the penalty kill. You look at the penalty kill last year for the Jets, 77.1%. 21st in the league. One other interesting stat, just looking through last year's numbers, Huss, the Winnipeg Jets, 3 shorthanded goals for. That ranks 32nd in the league, tied with a number of other teams, like the Sharks and the Blackhawks. Pretty good teams. Pretty good teams there. I don't know if you want to be tied with them in any category. So look, the penalty kill was bottom third in the league. They weren't going to score any goals. Why not try putting Kyle Connor out there? He's got speed. Maybe he can attack the blue line with his speed, try to force some turnover.
He has played a bit of PK in the past before. Certainly wasn't a regular, but at times he has been out there.
Yeah, why not get it
less as much?
Be aggressive, get on loose puck. So they have this new coaching staff. Why not try it out? Because they have a lot of the same players, and it seemed like whatever they did last year that didn't have a ton of success. The power play, I'm interested to see Nikolai Ehlers on that left side. You got to utilize him for zone entries. How many times did they just have trouble getting it in and getting it in and just getting it set up? And he is one of the best in the league. He's up there with McDavid in terms of number of zone entries. You see that speed. So I like that. And Scheifele in the bumper worked when Blake Wheeler was running the power play on the right side. We'll see how it goes with Ehlers on the left. Try new things. The power play didn't have a lot of success last year. And Mike does note one thing that is evident, a ton of movement, rotation by players during the power play drills, but those were happening without penalty killers. So it's one thing, first you got to practice it without anyone playing defense on you, but you can remember that and have it, part of your natural movement. So many times they'd practice something and then they'd go back to just standing still, passing it around, and have nothing happen. So power play, a focus.
The worst of the power play was when it got stagnant and it seemed like guys were just sort of stationary in their spots, and it became easier to defend. And adding more movement, both the players and the puck, I think is obviously the direction. Some good responses to the why not question of the day. Reggie Dunlop. Maybe dress 16 forwards and 2 D-men for more offense. We'll give you a little a stick tap for that one, Reg. Funny. Trish Jordan says, Scheifele makes sense. Connor is fast, but I don't see it. He's not good at defending. I mean, I think a lot of it is intuition, but also to be able to get to, the speed is very important. And then Getter Dunn says, why not, Huss? Perhaps they will all excel. You just never know. Matt Hyman says that Connor's played some PK before. So we'll see. We'll see how that looks. I mean, I think we're probably more focused on the power play because of what did and didn't happen last year when they were on the ice. But I will say that the PK is kind of interesting with some of those top offensive players that normally haven't been used in those roles, potentially getting out for it. The second power play unit had Brad Lambert on it, along with Nino Niederreiter, Neil Pionk, Alex Iafallo, and Vlad Nemetsnikov. And then a third group had Yeager, Chibrikov, Miller, Niederreiter, and Morrissey. Notice that Cole Perfetti was not on any of the power play units. I would imagine that will change over the course of the next few days as he gets back in, gets on the ice with his teammates. Pretty hard to imagine that Cole Perfetti is not going to have a role in the first or second power play this year, Reem.
No, I think Scott and Mike noted that he did rotate in eventually, but you've seen Cole Perfetti. He's got vision, and he could set up guys. And I know there was a stretch where he didn't have a lot of points, but how many times did he put it on a guy's tape and they didn't put it in the back of the net? He can only do so much, but you can't argue with the numbers, with the results that happened. But he does also have a good shot. I remember he sniped, was that LA game where he had a nice short side snipe when he came back from being a scratch. And again, the Jets power play last year, just looking at the percentage in the league, 18.8%, 22nd, bottom third. So Scott Arniel noting, hey, we can improve power play, head another kill. We can get just a couple percent better. That's a couple more goals for, a couple more goals against throughout the year. And yeah, the number of power play goals.
Remember what Bones said to us? When Bones came on after he retired, and we just kind of talked about his career, but also talked about last season, he was very candid and said, if they'd been able to get more out of their power play and just get that from 22nd into league average, this team probably wins the President's Cup. Now, again, that doesn't mean anything in the playoffs, but man, a good power play certainly would have helped them in that series against Colorado, after the, explosion of goals in that first game. So special teams will be a focus of the coach, and I imagine they will be of the fan base and us on Winnipeg Sports Talk as well. If you're interested in the PK, Lowry, Sandberg, DeMello, and Barron went out, but you also had Stanley getting in on it, Gus, Mason Shaw, Fleury, Toninato, Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, and Elias as well. So Mike's going to come on. We'll talk more about a bunch of the things that we just mentioned with Mike, who was there, hear what Cole Perfetti had to say, how the vibe check was today at camp as the team gets ready to get back onto home ice on Wednesday for their next preseason action. We're going to talk about the Perfetti deal and a little more happenings around the league with Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period first. But as I said, if you missed it yesterday, normally we do CFL 110 on Wednesdays. We did it early this year, folks. We did it for our friends at Garage Living Winnipeg on Monday because Jeff Hamilton is away and I am going to be away tomorrow. So check that out wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can search CFL 110 and it's up right now on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. A big thanks to Garage Living Winnipeg for their support. Guys, we're into fall, and the push is on. If you want to have a clean, organized garage this fall before the snow flies, give Garage Living Winnipeg a call at 999-1234. Pat's been getting lots of calls. As soon as back to school hit, people are suddenly seeing all the bikes, hockey, and football equipment, you name it, strewn all over the garage. Garage Living has an innovative solution called Slatwall. Dozens of hooks, baskets, and shelves that clip into it to get everything off your floor. There's even a cool golf club caddy and tire racks to store those winter tires. And the cool thing is you can do as much or as little of it as you want to fit in within your budget. This is your chance to clear the clutter, organize and beautify your garage with Slatwall, as well as beautiful polyaspartic floor coating and made in Canada premium metal cabinetry for a total garage makeover. Check out their website at garageliving.com. All their great work's shown there. And give our pal Pat Kanuga a buzz, 204-999-1234 to book a free in-garage consultation or make an appointment to meet him at their showroom at 981 Main Street. Garage Living Winnipeg. Garage is made for living. CFL 110 up right now on the WST YouTube channel. If you and your family have a move coming up in the next few months, or really any time, give our pals at Rolly's Transfer a call for the white glove treatment from the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba for over 60 years. Rolly has an extensive logistics business that takes them throughout the city and province on a daily basis, which means flexible timing, flexible routes, and great prices on that move. And you can get an even better price on that move being a WST listener. Check out their great website, Rollies.com. Top right corner, there is a request an estimate button. Click on that. Let them know when you're moving, where you're moving, and what you're moving, and make sure to put in WST in the promo code for a special discount for WST listeners on moving services and moving supplies. For your next move, make it Rollies, the most trusted name in moving in Manitoba, family owned for over 60 years. Find out more or request an estimate today at rollies.com. You know, it is absolutely gorgeous outside, and it looks like we're going to have some beautiful weather coming in for the remainder of September for the most part. Might be time to get a few more projects done or maybe even started. Heck, our friends at Consolidated Supply can help you with so much. You really have to pop in and see them at their showroom at 1395 Niagara to see it, to believe it. But, I mean, where do we start? They're the leaders in irrigation solutions and systems. Had a big start to the year considering how wet our May and June was. But so much more than that, artificial turf. You want that dream putting green in the backyard? They can make that happen. Something inside, no problem. Golf carts, the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, both new and used, as well as other innovative vehicles from Club Car with industrial usage. And then other great options for your property like hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. They're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Get on down and see Consolidated Supply at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. And before we bring in Pagnotta, a huge shout out to our friends at Manitoba Battery. You know, batteries, we take them for granted at times, certainly in the winter. But you know, when your car, your truck won't start, who are you to call? And that, of course, is Manitoba Battery. Now, Manitoba Battery has batteries for literally everything. They've been powering boats and campers and ATVs and all the fun stuff this summer. But very soon, it's going to be getting down to business for another Manitoba winter. For all of your battery needs, make sure you're prepared and do it locally and get the best prices in town. Manitoba Battery, beating the pants off the big box stores on price and with the best service as well. You can see them on Logan Avenue or on Dovercourt at either of their two locations, or you can give them a call or order online, and Manitoba Battery will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. Shop local, they'll bring it to you. Order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, Mike McIntyre coming up post-Jets practice in a little bit. First off, though, let's talk about the Perfetti deal and more happening around the National Hockey League with Dave Pagnotta of the fourth period.
Dave, what's going on? The journey has begun. Busy for everyone. I know you have a lot going on right now. Thanks for jumping on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It camp started and it's just straight into the fire. If I was already on the road, I'm back in Toronto. I'm on the road for another week starting Sunday. Actually, more than that, 11 days. So yeah, just let's go. Let's get it going.
Well, I know you have been all over the RFA beat, and thankfully we have put the Cole Perfetti contract negotiations to bed at least for 2 years. This one ended up at 3.25. Maybe a little lower than some people had projected, although others, you look at some of the analytic numbers and it was kind of more closer to 3. By all accounts, it was very cordial. It was polite. Cole still went to Vegas. Now that this is over and you look back, were you surprised that it took as long as it did? And what did you think about where they ended up?
I did. It was lower than I thought he was going to get, especially with the Mercer deal. Although it was an extra year, so you compensate for that. I thought this would be closer to the 4 mark, 3.5 to 4 mark, and 3.25. I mean, a little bit off, but they were going back and forth. The Jets and Chevy have a solid way for them of negotiating. I don't know if it's considered solid on the player side, but again, that's not. Sorry, it didn't mean there was any animosity or anything like that. Just the way of the negotiation, a little bit, the tactics a little bit different than I think what some players are used to. But ultimately, they got this done. And you're right. I mean, there was no animosity. He went to Vegas for the Players Tour willingly. If there was any beef, they probably would have said, "You're not repping us, so you're not going," and vice versa. He would have said, "I'm not dealing with you guys right now. We got to figure this out." So there was always the mindset that this was going to get done. It just took a little bit longer. And I think one of the reasons was because some of the other RFAs took almost as much time to get their deals done, and some of them were part of comparables. So it factored in a little bit into the negotiation. But it was always hovering around a 2-year. I've gotten to know Cole over the last few years. He comes to our golf tournament every year, just outside Toronto. Great guy, great talent. It just, he wants to be there. And they never got to the point, at least from the team side, of going long-term. I think they wanted to see how the short-term was going to do. And Cole was clearly comfortable with a bridge deal. Let's see how he develops. Let's see how he rolls with more ice time and more responsibility. And that'll certainly impact his next deal.
Yeah, I do wonder if there was a different nature. He didn't hit that wall last year. And if, the second half didn't go the way that it went, and whether we would be talking about a long-term deal, I think he's got a great opportunity these next 2 seasons to put himself in a very good spot for a long-term deal. And I think that's what all parties are hoping. But it was interesting that they went with the 2-year deal, considering how many of his peers around the league signed for anywhere between 6, 7, or even 8 years.
Yeah, and I think, to my knowledge, the Jets never came to him with a long-term offer. It was always hovering around 2, I believe. And then talking to a couple team sources, they started to talk about a 3-year in and around when Mercer signed his 3-year with New Jersey. Ultimately, it ends up being 2. But I think you want to see how he does with more responsibility. You want to see how he performs with, more ice time, more accountability in terms of being able to produce and being counted on to produce. So I think it makes sense because we really don't know, where he's at. He put up better numbers than Mercer last season, but Mercer has had more success overall in his first 3 years of the National Hockey League, at least numbers-wise, than Cole, even though Cole had a better season last year with limited ice time in comparison to that of Mercer, who was playing a lot with Jack Hughes as well. So there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of back and forth negotiation-wise. You try this comparable versus another. I think everybody kind of understood where the ballpark was going to be. Again, this kind of fits in a little bit lower, a tiny bit, but at the same time, He's making $3 million this year. Next year is 3.5. So that's the QO bottom. And it'll go up from there. But again, if he puts up a good season this year, he'll be eligible to sign an extension as of July 1. And then you have that discussion on a long-term deal as well. So I think this is, and again, Cole wants to be there. He wants to be there. He wants to prove himself, and he wants to be in Winnipeg long-term. That's a good sign for everybody involved. Put up the numbers. You'll be rewarded with the long-term deal, and go from there.
I do wonder how they ended up kind of finding the common ground on this, because it sort of seemed like the Jets had their offer, reportedly probably in and around the $3 million area. KO, I think, was looking for in and around $4 million. And there was a bit of a gap here, and that's a certain point something's got to give. And I do wonder how big a part Cole was of moving this forward and saying, let's get this done, because this is an important training camp for him. I mean, he's got a great opportunity in that top 6, but considering the way last season ended for him, I would imagine he'd want to be out there maybe as much, if not more, than any member of the Winnipeg Jets.
He had a big summer. He had a big summer training just outside Toronto with other NHL peers. And he was itching to go. And when he got to Winnipeg, he was skating with all the main guys. He was skating with everybody that was there before camp got underway. So, like, he's gung-ho. He's ready to go. He wants to obviously have a big season. I think reading the tea leaves, and I haven't asked yet what pushed that deal towards the end, towards the finish line last night. But I suspect that, and I think you're right, that Cole just said, look, let's get this done. Let's lock it in. After his agent said, okay, here's the last offer. Here's the latest offer, I should say. I think at that point, Cole, my gut says, all right, let's just get this done. We'll have a good season. I got to focus on the season. We'll worry about the long-term stuff later and the bigger dollars, later. I don't think he's overly concerned with it. I think he was so zeroed in on having a good year, a rebounding, because he spoke with Chevy, obviously, over the course of the summer. He spoke with the coach, not new, but the coaching staff with Scott and everybody about the type of role he was going to get this season. Now, he's got to maintain that. And I think he's ready for that challenge, and I think it'll be a successful one for him season-wise.
Well, you just mentioned Scott Arniel. He actually had, I think, some of his greatest success when Scott was behind the bench last year. And I mean, listen, it was all smiles today at camp down at the Hockey for All Center. He's back on the ice, and now they move forward to the season. Speaking of RFAs, though, there's one more situation that I don't know, doesn't seem to be getting that close, and that's a pretty significant one. Starting goaltender, the Boston Bruins, Jeremy Swayman. We've had the Chicklets boys pulled into it. We've had some very funny press conference from Don Sweeney, who even mentioned December 1st. I mean, what are you hearing on this? And could this be like the Nylander situation, which drags well into the regular season?
It's got that potential. And coincidentally, they have the same agent in Louis Gross. This one's a head scratcher. I think at the start of the season, the start of the summer, a lot of people just expected, all right, he's going to wait until Shesterkin gets his deal with the Rangers, and then that'll be part of the comparable that they'll use for his deal. The Chicklets guys, like Whit was right. Whitney was accurate with the information, and it was him, not Biz. And even though Biz got thrown under the bus, but it was Whitney that was right. It was 4 years at 6.2. But I think that offer was made at the beginning of the negotiation process, start of the summer. I think it's improved, depending on how you want to define that. But the numbers increased. But there were still, even last week, I guess, my understanding, a sizable gap. Because there's different variations of how this deal could play out. They could go to 4 or 5 years. They can go to 8. It's an interesting dynamic how this is ultimately going to kind of get finalized. Like, this is another scenario where, he was in Boston pretty much all offseason. He was skating with the Bruins that were there. He was skating with other mass players that were, in town, gearing up for the season, doing their offseason training. He was ready to go. So this is a bit of a head scratcher. Even like Cam Neely in the middle of the summer said, yeah, we'll get it done. We're not too worried about it. And camp started a week ago, and We're kind of waiting. So, look, again, with any situation, it could just one phone call just says, all right, to heck with this. Let's just get this done. Here's a number. Let's call it a day. Let's get his butt in camp. But that hasn't happened yet. So we got to wait. And this isn't a holdout situation because he's not under contract. Like he's waiting for his deal. So he's not withholding services or anything. I know it was a term that was thrown around last week.
Yeah, just like Perfetti.
Right. Exact same situation. So, he's not withholding services. They're not locking him out of camp. He's just not under contract. So once they figure that out, he'll get there. But apparently there's a lot to figure out.
How's this for a storyline, Dave? A month-long holdout into the season for Swayman, and we get the Jonas Korpisalo redemption arc in Boston with this new team. Wouldn't that be something after the season he had last year in Ottawa?
Yeah, well, for him, that would be great. For the Bruins, it'd be good, too, because you can just offset it. Because especially with goalies, like you miss camp, you need effectively that duration of 2-3 weeks before you're ready to go. So let's say he signs, I don't know, let's say the first full week of October. So the first week of the season, the puck drops on the 4th in Europe. But on our side, it's the 8th. Let's say he signs that week. Okay, cool. He'll be ready to go in November in terms of game ready to start the season. And then you got to shake off whatever game in start of the season game ready cobwebs that you have, just like everybody else that does that in the first week or two of the regular season. So the longer this goes, the more impactful that's going to be. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe Korpisalo can rebound, get back on track. I don't know. He's got to have...
This has happened in Boston before. That team, for whatever reason, you have guys that were whatever, and then they go to Boston, and all of a sudden they've completely rejuvenated the career. I guess we'll see about that. But Swayman is going to be the guy for them at some point when he signs.
Yeah, exactly. And, better decor, a little more talent in Boston than Ottawa overall. So, yeah, it could be a fortuitous situation for him, for Korpisalo, to play, but I mean, I kind of would rather have Swayman.
Yeah, I think John Sweeney would be in the same case. I was pumped that we had you on today because obviously we wanted to get to the Cole Perfetti situation first, and now that's done. But you were there at the big rollout of the new Amazon Prime broadcast package, which I think, I mean, a lot of hockey fans kind of are realizing this is coming. Some people don't even still do. But just fill us in on just the launch of it and what the casual fan needs to know from what they rolled out.
Yeah, well, they three things, but the first being for us in Canada. So Amazon Prime owns Monday Night Hockey nationally in Canada. A lot of people, I was getting chirped all over the place by U.S. fans yesterday. I'm sorry, but you have ESPN Plus, and Canada, we've got Amazon Prime now for Mondays. But they rolled out their crew for that. So John Forsland is doing the play-by-play, and then you've got an altering group of analysts that are going to be part of this. So Jody Shelley, Shane Knighty, who I know you guys are familiar with, in Winnipeg, Blake Bolden as well, and Thomas Hickey. So you've got 3 former NHL players. You've got a former U.S. player as well on the women's side in Blake, who's going to provide insight as well, just like them. And Mark Messier is also going to be part of the broadcast. Not on the color side, but I think in the studio. And Adnan Verk is going to be hosting that. And that's going to be every Monday. And then you've got the Coast to Coast, which will air every Thursday. Andy Petrillo is hosting that. It's going to have an array of rotating analysts and celebrities that are going to be part of it. And this one's really cool. Like this is like NFL Red Zone that is for hockey. They're trying this out. They want to see if it's going to work. I think it's going to be pretty cool because there's going to be open discussion, open dialogue. It's going to start at 7 Eastern every Thursday, and it's just going to go until basically games are done. So it seems really cool. What they showed us is really cool. The type of content, they want this to be more go with the flow and more personable, the Coast to Coast program. Obviously, game broadcast will be game broadcast. But this is just a different dynamic, bringing fresh voices to calling national games. And they have invested, Amazon has invested quite heavily into this. It's only 2 years right now because it's through the end of the Rogers rights deal. But I definitely see this being a long-term thing. Monday Night Hockey, and Coast to Coast may expand. They may add additional programming as well. But in terms of game rights, it looks like Monday Night Hockey on Amazon Prime will be locked in for a very long time. And then the other stuff will come with it. The other thing they unveiled, and this is globally, is the docuseries that was done by Box to Box Productions and Amazon, which they produce F1 Drive to Survive, which is unreal. And they brought that element to this broadcast. They showed us the first episode. It features William Nylander and David Pasternak, their relationship growing up, which I don't think a lot of people know about, overseas and coming over here, and that relationship, and then meeting in the first round. So it was really, really cool. They've got 6 episodes this season. A lot of behind-the-scenes content that I hadn't seen before. It's stuff you hear about, you know about, you kind of spot as you're walking around the room. But that stuff usually doesn't become public. And Amazon and their crew has done a hell of a job in bringing that to light. So that's going to launch on October 4th. And I think it's all 6 episodes, just like Amazon does with all their programming. So you'll be able to binge watch, 6 hours worth of those episodes, and as they figure out season 2 for that. But it was cool. It was, and a lot of, like, Gary Bettman was there, Steve Mayer was there, Bill Daly was there, all the big heavy hitters at Amazon. Paul Martin, who was the executive producer and the creator of Drive to Survive, who's part of this show, he was there. And it was funny. He was telling us he knows nothing about hockey. Like, it's like zero. He just knows entertainment. And when he got to meet these guys, he thought, there's a bunch of brutes and they're just going to throw fists and hit the body, and they're dumb, they're Neanderthals and everything. And he goes, no, these guys are very charismatic. They have personalities, and we're going to exploit the crap out of it as best we can, just like they do with the F1 drivers. It's going to be a really cool series. I'm interested to see how the rest of it plays out. And they focus on guys that have an interesting storyline. And it's not just going to be them. It's going to be some of their family members. There are other NHL guys that make cameos as part of this. This is a cool initiative. And I will say this, it's not an NHL-run production. This is Amazon. This is box-to-box entertainment. This is the Drive to Survive crew that are doing this. And that's one of the appeals for the NHL players that participated. They didn't want to have red tape because the NHL and NHLPA have a tendency of doing that. This was all Amazon and box-to-box. So you're getting authenticity from guys that want to be authentic.
Just looking at the episodes here, the last 2, Cup or Bust Part 1 and Part 2, all around the Cup final with McDavid, Draisaitl, and Hyman, and then the final one with Tkachuk and McDavid. I've seen a couple of clips of that, and amazing footage that they have. And I think this will be a real treat for hockey fans. And hopefully, to your point about their personalities, maybe we get a little bit more from a superstar like Connor McDavid than we normally do in the day-to-day grind of being the face of the league and a superstar for the Edmonton Oilers. Dave Pagnotta of the Fourth Period is with us. Pags, you've got quite the itinerary over the next little while. I didn't even know that the Kings were playing in Quebec City. So fill us in. You're going to be in Quebec City. You're going to be in Florida. You're going to Europe too for the Europe games?
No, that's going to be the same time as Quebec. So we had to pick. We had to pick and choose. Did Prague a couple of years ago. Would love to go back, but we're going to be in Quebec. So, yeah, it's been a grind already. I was in Minnesota for a few days for shoots, in LA with DB last week, and then Leafs camp. And this weekend, head to Fort Lauderdale for a few days, home for like 12 hours. Then going to Quebec City until I think it's the 2nd to the 6th. The Kings have a couple preseason games. They're playing Boston on the 3rd and Florida on the 5th in Quebec City. So that should be entertaining. That's going to be fun. Dennis and I are going to that. Then where am I? I'm somewhere.
In Toronto for a day or two before stepping out again.
Yeah, well, we're going to Utah. I forgot about that. We're going to Utah for the first game on the 8th. So we're doing that. The next day I fly to Montreal for Habs and Leafs. And then I think the next day to Toronto for the game on the 12th. So lots of bouncing around in the full swing of things, but there's some fun stuff coming. So, hey, let's do it. everybody complains the season's too long, and then midway through August, everyone's just itching and scratching and like, oh, I got to get hockey going again. So I'll take it.
Well, you know what? We're happy that the big story at Jet Camp is in the rearview mirror. Cole Perfetti's back. Time to get ready for the season. We'll handle a few more preseason games, but cannot wait to drop the puck on the year. Best of luck to you. Say hi to DB. Have a good time in Quebec City. We'll talk soon, Dave. Thanks a lot for jumping on today.
You got it, buddy. Take it easy.
All right. Great stuff with Dave. Looking forward to chatting up with Mike. Of course, we got a big Blue Bomber game on Friday night. The rematch, Bombers Elks. MBT starting for the Edmonton Elks coming into Princess Auto Stadium to take on the Bombers. Other big news, Jeremiah Masoli getting the start for Ottawa in Saskatchewan. We'll be all over it this week on the show. Of course, all of our Bomber reports are brought to you by Princess Auto, proud sponsors of WST, and of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And the home of the Bombers, Princess Auto Stadium, will be packed and will be rocking on Friday night for the big game. Get there early. Princess Auto tailgate zone 2 hours before game time. $5 beers, $3.50 poppin' hot dogs, entertainment, inflatables for the kids. It is absolutely the place to be. Weather looks like it's going to be gorgeous. So get on out there early and make the entire Princess Auto Stadium experience a full one with the Princess Auto tailgate party beforehand. Of course, Princess Auto founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg, taking care of our Bomber fans and, of course, Winnipeg sports fans as well. You can get the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new at Princess Auto. Visit them on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Speaking of Princess Auto Stadium, I hope that they have replenished the Canadian Club stock coming out of the Banjo Bowl for the game on Friday. Canadian Club is, of course, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and is available throughout Princess Auto Stadium on game days. While you're there, you might want to check out Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, premixed cocktail in cans. One of my favorite drinks of the summer and a very popular one for Bomber fans as well. That is available at Princess Auto Stadium. And while the entire Canadian Club family of spirits are available at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart, you can also pick up CC and Ginger on your next trip to your local beer store, so keep your eyes out on that. Big thanks to Canadian Club for their continued support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you have fencing or overhead door needs, there's only one place you need to go in Winnipeg, and that, of course, is Wallace & Wallace. And that hasn't changed for about 7 decades because they've been the leaders in both since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, Wallace & Wallace has you covered with vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you need a new garage door, talk to the experts at Wallace & Wallace about one because they have the largest selection in Manitoba as the exclusive Clopay dealer in town. That new garage door will beautify your house and add value to it as well. Give Wallace & Wallace a call, 204-452-2700. Their team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com, wallacedoors.com, or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And folks, while we've got gorgeous weather this week, fall is pretty much here. And as we get into the new season, if you are looking into your closet and realize that you need to maybe up your menswear game, we got you covered. Head on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown for the best in custom men's clothing. Custom suits beginning at just $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories available in town. If you are getting married this year or in a wedding party coming up in the future, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount for the entire wedding party when you get your suits at F Apparel. F is at 190 Smith Street downtown. You can find out more information or book an appointment to come in for a fitting online at F. That's EPH JetsApparel.com. All right, let's welcome in Mike McIntyre from the Winnipeg Free Press for the latest on the Jets. Mike, what's going on? How are you?
Doing well, Huss. Back to our regular scheduled Tuesdays. I was all out of sorts. That's what summertime does, of course. We flip-flop. So it was all over the map, but good to be back on a Tuesday afternoon. Just got back from the Hockey for All Center, where some interesting developments today. Of course, Cole Perfetti speaking. And how about the news that the Jets could have a couple new penalty killers this year? Folks haven't heard it just yet. Scott Arniel just revealed in the last hour to us that he plans to use Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor as a, would we call that a power kill, I guess, if you're putting those guys on the penalty kill? And even Nikolai Ehlers, Scott Arniel said, is likely to get some PK time. I guess if you didn't know that Scott Arniel was going to try and put his own unique stamp on the Jets, that might be Exhibit A right there. A more aggressive approach to penalty killing could see some of the team's top offensive players used, and I suspect a lot of fans will like that development, Huss.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, it was funny. He said, they'll maybe get some more pop on the PK, at which point somebody in chat said, well, why don't they just ice 16 forwards in 2D for more offense? And everyone had a laugh and chat about that. Listen, this is not something that you don't see in other places. And, often I think there can be benefit to the players as well for, just being in those situations, knowing that you really have to focus on angles and lanes.
Yep.
But have that pop, especially a guy like Kyle Connor, who has killed some penalties in the past for the Winnipeg Jets, knowing with that blazing speed, if you do get an open puck, maybe you have more. Remis pointed out the Jets were at the bottom of the league, in the bottom three in shorthanded goals last year, and, those certainly can't help. But let's back up and start with Cole Perfetti, because, I opened the show with saying, good news, we don't have to talk about this contract for another 2 years. It got done. What do we know about how it got done? Because when we were doing the show yesterday, there wasn't really a lot of reports that any progress had been made. And then by the time the Bengals were blowing it and losing their third straight game, Cole Perfetti had a deal and was getting ready for practice today.
Yeah, if we were expecting Cole Perfetti to take us deep inside negotiations, you'd be disappointed. He didn't, speak out of school in that sense. Was certainly asked on a number of occasions today, like what was the trigger here? And I think Huss, clearly time was of the essence. I think both player and team, once this got beyond the weekend, like everybody said, kind of, what are we doing here? How far are we going to let this drag out? 2 of the 6 preseason games were now in the rearview mirror, and clearly it took concessions. Cole Perfetti admitted that. I think, Huss, if you brought out a scale and you were balancing the concessions here, I think it would be fair to say that Cole Perfetti's side made the bigger concessions. That is to say that the deal that got done with the 3.25 AAV is closer to what the Jets were offering as opposed to what Perfetti's camp was asking. But there was concessions made both ways. And Cole Perfetti, he kind of reiterated that he would have liked to have looked at a long-term deal. And it certainly sounds like that was more the Jets doing, that was not something they wished to explore at this point in time. But Cole Perfetti, he doubled down again today and said, I want to stay here long-term. And he mentioned we can revisit that again in 2 years. But clearly there was some disappointment that it even got as far as it did from Cole Perfetti. That was pretty evident in hearing him speak today. But I think, Huss, there's also a sense of relief that it didn't go any longer, that enough time had kind of gone in the rearview mirror. And, to hear Cole Perfetti kind of just discuss these last few days, I think in his mind, he always expected this was going to come together quickly. And a big point of evidence, and that would be that he never left Winnipeg. Whereas we've seen players in other markets, even in other situations involving Jets in the past, either leave town to go train somewhere else or not even get here to begin with. Cole Perfetti was here from the start. Of course, he represented the Jets at the media tour in Vegas. He was then skating with his teammates. And it was interesting to hear him say today that he stuck around and, found a group of guys, non-Jets guys, obviously, to work out with here. But I think that tells you right there that he always expected this was going to happen. And I don't want to say this came down to who blinked first, because I think in a sense both sides blinked. But the point being, I think everybody recognized that it's time to end this little stare down or game of chicken, whatever you want to call it. And things moved along rather quickly yesterday. And I think when we look at the final deal, it's probably fair for all of us to say, well, what took so long if that was the deal that was going to get done, what took so long? I suppose if you're Perfetti's camp, maybe you were hoping the Jets would blink a little sooner, and they didn't. And so you end up taking, maybe a little bit less than you were originally willing to settle for. But at the end of the day, he just wants to play hockey. And he made that very clear today that he's anxious to now focus on the hockey side of things.
I do wonder, Mike, if last season's halves were reversed, if Cole Perfetti really struggled in the first 30 games of the year and then put up the numbers that he did eventually, more so in the second half of the season, and obviously was more of a player for the team in the playoffs, as to how different this conversation would have been between the two clubs. Would there be more of a thought on, let's get this player signed long term, as opposed to let's go for another 2 years and then see where we're at going forward? We'll never know the answer to that, I guess. But I was a little surprised that that maybe there wasn't more thoughts, because the Jets at times before have kind of, I don't want to say bought low, but got in with players on long-term deals that have really turned out to be very beneficial to the club long-term. This seemed like there was an opportunity to do that. I don't know. What's your takeaway on this as far as how the Jets, listen, they want this young man. He's going to be playing a lot. He's going to have a big role this team, but it does seem like maybe there's a little bit still to be proved for Cole, based on what we've learned about these negotiations before he gets that long-term deal and spends the majority of his career here in Winnipeg. Yeah,
I mean, this process is different than, say, arbitration, where you go before an independent third party and both sides, present their arguments, and essentially the team tears you down and states all the reasons that you're not worth what you're asking for. That's not what this was. And in that sense, I don't think Cole Perfetti would take this as personal as if he had gone through arbitration and lost. That being said, your point is a good one, Huss, about the splits and if they were reversed. And I agree with you. I mean, I think if that was the case and he had progressively been coming on strong as the year went, I do wonder if the Jets would have had a little more confidence to put 8 years beside a number as opposed to what they just did now.
There is something to be said, and T-Well mentioned this, but you could also say that if he struggled the way they did at the end of the season, early on in the season, he might not have had the opportunity to play in the second half of the season. But, for the sake of argument, timing is everything. Recency bias is a thing. And I do think the struggles that he had in the second half of the season certainly were a big factor on how it even got to this point, and the fact that they really didn't go down the road of an extensive long-term contract with Winnipeg.
No, and to throw a couple of things out the window here for anybody who's going to say, well, the Jets are just trying to cheap out. That's not what this was about. Them not going long-term right now has nothing to do with the Jets trying to be cheap. They have the money. They could have gone long-term. It's not like they didn't have the cap space. And I fully suspect they will go long-term with Cole Perfetti. I just think from the Jets' perspective, they want to see a bigger body of work. Now, Huss, you can make a valid argument that this could end up costing Winnipeg, that if Cole Perfetti absolutely pops off now these next 2 years, the number that his agent will be coming back to Kevin Cheveldayoff with in the summer of 2026 is going to look a lot different than what Perfetti would have been asking for on a long-term deal in 2024, and that this may cost the Jets. Now, I think what we can safely assume, Huss, is that's a risk Winnipeg is willing to take. They're willing to, and you could almost say that would be filed away under a good problem to have. Like the Jets would happily pay a king's ransom if Cole Perfetti over these next 2 years basically outperforms this deal and now earns himself a significant new deal. So, that's clearly a risk they're willing to take. And I think it's a risk that they can absorb because of the money that's going to be coming off the books. Like you now look even as early as next year, there's a lot of money that the Jets will now have to play with. And, that's assuming that they don't extend Neil Pionk and Nikolai Ehlers, which they very well could do. But if you just take the money off those pending UFAs off the books, the Jets are going to have a lot of money, and they now have not committed, certainly next year, to tying any of that up with Cole Perfetti in terms of a major number. So they've got some real flexibility here, and maybe that's exactly what they want to have, that they've got a number of directions they could go, and they've kind of left all avenues open in that sense, including with what they eventually do with Cole Perfetti.
Well, and you know what? I mean, it's sort of a separate topic as to what this means for the season itself. But just to your point, Ehlers UFA, Iafallo UFA, Appleton UFA, Nemetsnikov UFA, Axel UFA, and then, of course, Neil Pionk on the blue line. It's over $20 million in cap space when you put all the players together. So, I mean, the lineup could look significantly different. There's another side to that where if you got, 30% of your team playing in a contract year, often that brings out the best. It certainly did bring out the best in Neil Pionk the last time he was in a contract year, and that's why he got the deal that he did. But for Perfetti, their ability even as early as July 1 next year to extend Cole changes significantly depending on the decisions they make on many of these other players. For Cole right now, though, the job is to come in to camp, make up for some missed time, and establish himself as a reliable, productive player in that top six. As far as practice goes today, I mean, you were kind of mentioning the amount of work they did on special teams.
Yeah.
What was Perfetti's role in it? Because he was not in that power play practice, and I think we'd all agree that it is highly likely that when things actually get going, Cole Perfetti is going to have a spot on either one of the first two power play units.
Yeah, we were kind of sitting around joking that Perfetti's already demanded a trade after they did a few reps on the power play. So they went like PP1, he wasn't on it. PP2, he wasn't on it. Then they added in a few other guys. He's not on it. By my count, he was on about PP5 today, Huss. But he was an observer at the start of power play practice, standing at center ice watching. He did start working into the power play units as the skate went on, and that was by design. We heard that from Scott Arniel. For anybody worrying that they should be reading anything into it, don't. Scott Arniel made it crystal clear. Cole Perfetti will be getting power play time this year. He also made it clear he will be a second line winger this year. Who's he going to play with? Well, Scott Arniel wouldn't tip his hand other than to say that there's a few different combinations that they plan to look at over these next couple weeks. We won't get a sense as early as tomorrow, Huss, because Cole Perfetti will not play in the preseason game tomorrow. A lot of the Jets vets will play tomorrow for the first time, in fact, because a lot of them did not play over the weekend. But Cole Perfetti won't get in until Friday. There's a good chance, I suspect, that we see Cole Perfetti play the final three preseason games. It will be interesting to see who his line mates are. Now, at one point today, Haas, again, I would caution about reading too much into this, but there were some line rushes taken where Cole Perfetti was with Nikolai Ehlers and Brad Lambert. And I suspect there's a lot of people out there who probably got very excited just to see those three names all beside each other and what that might mean. Again, massive grain of salt. I'm not saying that's what a line is going to be, but is it possible we see that threesome together in a preseason game? Definitely possible. But what was made clear again today for anybody wondering, Scott Arniel does not view Cole Perfetti as a centerman, at least not right now. And it doesn't look like, when we talk about who's the second line center, you can pretty much scratch Cole Perfetti's name off that list of candidates. That he just feels Cole Perfetti's strengths right now as a player are on the wing as opposed to up the middle. Could that change going forth? Perhaps. But that's as much insight, I guess, as we can glean out of what today looked like.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, one takeaway from those comments and where things are at right now with the roster is that we're going to probably see a lot more of Brad Lambert through the preseason at center. And if he can hold his own, we may very well could see the team start that way. Like, they know they can go back to Vlad Nemetsnikov. Like, I don't think they need to work through a couple games with Vlad in the middle, considering how much he played in that role last year, depending on injuries and obviously before Sean Monahan got here. I don't think there's any doubt that the player with the most eyes on him and probably the most opportunity of those young players right now is Brad Lambert. And honestly, so far, so good. He's really acquitted himself well, both in practice and a pretty good start to the preseason, even though it was a loss against the Minnesota.
Yeah, and I mean, another little interesting development to me today, Huss, was that if folks saw the rosters before the day began, they had Group A and Group B. And it was supposed to be, Group B was supposed to be 20 players, and Group A was the other 32. 31, I guess, because Ville Heinola is injured. But that group of 20 quickly got cut down to a group of 8 because the 12 cuts they made all came out of Group B. Group B, when you looked at it to start the day, it was basically all their junior players, including Colby Barlow and Moose guys and guys on ATOs. The one exception is one junior player who was with Group A, and that would be Braden Yeager. He was not with all the other junior players. And some might say, okay, well, that's because they knew they were going to send those junior kids back today. Well, they didn't send all of them because Colby Barlow is still here, and he's in Group B. Braden Yeager's in Group A. Now, again, grain of salt, big grain of salt, but that is perhaps slightly telling. And I think what we saw today with all the special teams work, Braden Yeager was involved in the power play drills as well. And the Jets obviously, they know what his strengths are. He's an offensive player. They would not try, if he was going to have a spot in the lineup, it's not as a fourth line grinder. It's as an offensive player. So maybe it was just for the day and they wanted him to be part of what they were going to do in terms of power play work. But I would say that that's a pretty good feather in the hat for Braden Yeager and the camp he's had so far, that he is with Group A. And I think that also is reflective, Huss. He may get sent back to junior when camp ends, but he didn't go back to junior with all the other junior guys today. And I suspect he's going to get probably a couple more preseason games to show what he can do at the very least.
Well, I'm with you on that. And, obviously we were out at the Iceplex for Hockey for All Center for Thursday and Friday and then Saturday. And Saturday he was out early because he was part of the playing group, and they did work on power play for a while. And he totally stood out to me during that period that they were working on. I mean, the way that he controlled and really kind of quarterbacked the power play from the half wall. He scored a beautiful goal on a quick release. He had an amazing pass to Colby Barlow, who ripped it behind the netminder very quickly. And listen, there's a lot that goes into playing regularly in the National Hockey League, and you can't watch a guy, look like a wizard on the power play and say, oh, he's ready to go. But I'll tell you what, I mean, there are elements of his game that would absolutely fit into the National Hockey League right now. And it certainly looked that way when they had the man advantage, of the way that he was able to control, see the ice, make great passes outside of where the penalty killers were, is something that the Winnipeg Jets could use. I mean, I'm still not, laying a big wager down that he's going to be here past 9 games or even get into regular season games. But I'm here for it right now, and I would love to see him get a little bit more work, much like Brad Lambert did, playing with some of the NHLers in that first game.
Yep.
Now that the roster's been cut down a little bit, let's see what he looks like with a few of the guys that are returning NHL veterans and see how he works. I mean, to me, definitely one of the most intriguing young men in camp right now. Spotlight a little bit more on Lambert because he had the year with the Moose, and there is that spot, but we see it all the time. Some guys that come in that maybe play their way into giving the organization a very, very tough decision, and that's going to be his job for this next week.
Yeah, you watch him in these practices, camp skates, Hassan. There's a confidence with the puck and almost borderline swagger when he's got the puck. I'm thinking back to this morning. They were sort of just kind of horsing around doing some puck handling, and him and Gabe Vilardi were like sort of doing a little one-on-one, and Braden Yeager, like absolute filthy toe drag, where Gabe Vilardi, it was almost like hey, where did that puck go? What are you doing, youngster? And Gabe Vilardi's a young player himself, but it got a few oohs and ahs from the crowd, and again, you just see the skills are evident for sure. He's obviously got the speed, and I think at the very least, Huss, he's opening eyes and causing pause for thought, reflection, what have you, and that's a good thing. That's what I'm sure he hoped to come and do at this first camp with the Jets, and so far so good from what we've seen from him.
While we're talking about some of the younger players, I mean, we talked about Lambert and Yeager, Chibrikov and Elias Salmonson, both with the A group right now. What do you make of their spot right now in camp as they look to get into more preseason games and try and get into the conversation to be on the roster?
Well, I think Chibrikov's in a more unique position than, say, Lambert and even Yeager, because I think us, unlike those two, if you're finding a spot for them in the lineup, it's likely in the top 6. I guess you could maybe say top 9. Whereas Nikita Chibrikov, I think he's got the toolkit to really play in whatever role you'd like him to play.
Agreed.
And he could play as a fourth line checker, as a bit of an agitator, a pest, with a little bit of finish. We know he's got some finish in his game, but we know he's got a bunch of other things as well that he does really well. And so I think that opens up, a world of possibilities. And as we go now into these final 4 preseason games, again, which I expect he's probably in at least 2, maybe 3, heck, maybe all 4. I'll be very curious to see how Scott Arniel, who he puts him with and what that looks like, because I think they could try him out with, I personally would love to see him with Lowry and Niederreiter for a game. Like, why not? Let's see what he looks like. Let's see what that line looks like. We already know what Appleton and Niederreiter and Lowry look like. I don't think we need a preseason game, to be reflective of that. As for Elias Salomonsson, really interesting, isn't it, Huss, that he's the one guy that played back-to-back? And I'll say this about Elias. I thought he had his struggles in the first preseason game. I thought a couple of his reads, I'm sure he would like back. And again, that's just part of getting used to NHL speed and all the nuances that come with playing in North America. For them to go right back to him in game 2 the next day, it wasn't even 24 hours later. And I actually really liked his game better in game 2 than game 1. And I got to think the Jets saw the same thing and were probably very happy with a lot of his decision making. I still think, Huss, there's almost no chance, virtually no chance he's cracking the big league roster to start the season. We already know that Scott Arniel has said he's probably just keeping 7 defensemen. I do not expect Elias Salomonsson, barring a whole bunch of injuries that happen between now and opening night, I just don't see it. I do see him, though, getting all kinds of opportunity and playing time and big responsibility with the Manitoba Moose, and being an option certainly at some point this season. And I'll say this, if he can make the kind of adjustments that I think we saw even from game 1 to game 2, that bodes well for what this young man is capable of. And, I think the Jets are very, very excited about what they've seen. He's not the kind of guy that's going to come in and score highlight reel goals and stuff. In a lot of cases, Huss, sometimes defensemen are at their best when you barely notice them, right? And I think he had a much quieter and much more effective game 2 for the Jets. And I suspect we see him in a couple more preseason games here before he's probably ultimately sent to the Manitoba Moose.
Yeah, and listen, I think he's going to stick around for a while. And I mean, especially for a young guy coming over, albeit his second camp, but I mean, the first preseason game is the first preseason game. You cannot put too much stock in. I think they'll put a lot more stock into how he's faring even in practice right now, going up against NHL regulars, and that's a big part of being in that A group. And I'm with you. I mean, I'll lay a wager down that Elias Salomonsson plays NHL games this season. I think it's more likely a little bit later on. Although I will say this, Mike, the Jet blue line for the most part has been incredibly healthy the last couple of years. With the way the right side is, and again, you've got Coughlin in the mix as well. But, it's only going to take a guy or two when all of a sudden some players that maybe were penciled in for other roles are actually in and getting a chance to show what they can do. And much like Josh Morrissey famously a few years ago came in because of an injury to start the season and never looked back. And but focus on the present right now. Get through these next couple of days of practice. Get in for another game, and go from there. Just a quick thought. We went through all the cuts earlier. Yeah. Anyone that was released or sent back to junior, I have to admit, Kevin He really stood out to me this year. Yeah. I mean, for a guy that was a mid-round pick, just 18, just drafted, I thought he had a really, really good training camp. And you'd have to think that he leaves Winnipeg with, a lot of confidence and a lot of excitement for this upcoming junior season and another chance to come back and show how much he's grown in 12 months.
Well, in addition to a motor that never seems to stop, like he's just one gear and that's full out all the time. And you notice that in practice and certainly in games. He's also got a really good head on his shoulders, Huss. He's a smart hockey player. You hear hockey IQ and that. He's got it for sure. Even the play he made the other night in the preseason game to set up, it was Toninato, I believe, who scored the goal, right? That Kevin He set up, but it was a really smart play to get that assist. He earned that assist, no question about it. And yeah, I just think I'm not surprised he got sent back today because he was never making the team this year, of course, and he can't go play for the Moose. And the plan was always probably just to give him one game. These kids, especially the ones that just got drafted this past year, they were only going to get the one game anyways. So would they have liked to give him another game? Probably. You could say he earned it. I just think that spot is better suited to someone who's more in the mix in the here and now. But absolutely, Kevin He made a great first impression on, I think, the Jets brass and certainly on many of us observers. And I look forward to seeing what he can do in what should be a really productive year of junior for him.
Folks, stick around. We've got Cole Perfetti audio, so we'll hear from Cole Perfetti after we finish up with Mike. Mike, just before we go, we were talking a little bit about the PK and Scheifele and Connor and potentially Ehlers getting in the mix and all about the power play. I saw your notes from it. I mean, a lot of movement, both of puck and player, and you'd have to think that Arnie and his new coaching staff are going to really trying to reinforce that, because that really was something that was missing quite a bit of the time last year of the Jet power play, despite all the talent that they put out on the ice. And it made it a little easier to defend it. And I think the numbers spoke for themselves as to where the power play was last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jets became what you never want to become as a team, predictable. They were pretty easy to figure out. And I suppose it's one thing, Huss, if you're predictable, but you have like a weapon that just can't be stopped. I'm thinking, Alex Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals. That's a pretty predictable power play. Everybody knows what they're trying to do, and they still can't stop it. I mean, Alex Ovechkin is arguably the greatest goal scorer of his generation, maybe of all time. Even when the Jets had Patrick Laine, predictable was pretty good because they had a guy with a shot that was practically unstoppable. When you don't have that, and especially when they don't have, the Dustin Byfuglien blast from the point, or the Dustin Byfuglien, you never quite knew what he was going to do, when he might just go rogue and kind of just, put on a one-man show out there. Like, the Jets' power play in recent years has become very predictable, very static. And at times, it just seemed like the five guys, everybody just stood there, and you hope that things would work out, and quite often they didn't. So, yeah, today it was noticeable just how much movement, rotation there was. Nobody really standing still. I would describe it, Huss, today as chaotic, and not necessarily in a good way. Like, put it this way, the penalty killers today were so far ahead of the power play that it wasn't even funny. I'm not kidding when I say in the probably hour of special teams work exclusively that went on, I don't know that I saw any power play today score a goal. And I'm not exaggerating. I know there was at least one shorthanded goal that was scored. Like, the penalty killers may have outscored over what essentially was like a 60-minute power play. Now, there was some stops and starts and whatnot. So I'll just say it's an extreme work in progress. And there was a lot of chaos to it today, but I think that was by design. And Scott Arniel did reveal to us that they're going to have another one of these skates next week that will just be all about special teams, another like 90-minute special. And by the time they do it in a week or so from now, he said, they'll pretty much be down to their actual team. And the hope, I suppose, is that the power play looks a little more effective next week than it did today.
Mike, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week with the latest on the Jets as they get closer to the final roster in the beginning of the regular season in early October. Thanks for doing this as always.
You bet. Take care, Huss.
All right, there's Mike McIntyre. You can read he and Ken Weeb's work covering the Jets in the Winnipeg Free Press. We're going to hear from Cole Perfetti. First up, though, a big cheers to our friends over at Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones. The ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right. Hey, I got to shout out our pals over at Royal Sports who are ready for hockey season. Listen, Royal is the hockey superstore in town, and no matter the age or the level of the hockey player in your family, you can knock off the entire list with one stop at Royal Sports. Everything from goalie equipment, protective equipment, a massive stick selection, helmets, all the way to stick tape and skate sharpening. Royal Sports has been the hockey superstore in town for over 40 years at 750 Pembina Highway. And while you're there getting ready to drop the puck, check out their incredible section of Winnipeg Jets and NHL merchandise, bomber gear for the push to the playoffs, and of course, all the new NFL merchandise coming in right now as the 4-down game is well underway. Royal Sports, Winnipeg's hockey and sports superstore, family-owned for over 40 years, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, nice to have a little doubleheader at Boston Pizza last night for Monday Night Football. We've got another doubleheader coming up on Monday, but whether it's Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, or a full day of Sundays, Boston Pizza is your NFL headquarters. Pop in for the game and get your chance to win an exclusive trip to Vegas for Super Bowl weekend, along with NFL jerseys, NFL and Boston Pizza swag, and much, much more. And hey, if you are staying at home, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. And listen, Jets back in action on Wednesday for preseason action. Their final preseason game will be on the 2nd of October. And as I mentioned to you before, we are very close to launching the WST ticket pack and ticket opportunities for this year. We're going to add some flexibility in it. We're going to have a game of the month. We're going to get the crew together 6 times this year. And it looks like that first game is going to be the 20th of October against you-know-who and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So stay tuned. By the end of this week or early next week, we'll roll it out. You'll have the opportunity to go on the link to reserve your seats and join us for some more great times with the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew at Canada Life Center watching the Winnipeg Jets. All right, don't forget tonight is our poker tournament with Edmonton Sports Talk over at CoolBet. We'll fill you in the details on that in just a few minutes. But let's hear from Cole Perfetti. He was back at practice today for the first time since signing his contract, and I'm sure it was quite a relief for Cole to get it done. Cole was asked about the contract and just communications with his agents over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's nice to get that done. It's nice to be back in camp and with the guys. It sucks missing time, so it's just great to get that that contract done, and now it's just time to focus on hockey. So it's a great feeling.
I'm sure there's always lots of advice shared if it's solicited, but I'm just kind of wondering, Cole, was there ever a point where you got in touch with Cam or whoever it was that was carrying on the negotiations to say, okay, here's my timeline, here's when I want to make sure I'm back on the ice with my teammates? How did that all play out?
I mean, yeah, obviously, I think where both sides are working together. I'm working with my side to figure out a plan, and I think obviously no one wants to miss time, no one wants to miss camp. I think from the get-go, I've always wanted to be a part of it from day one, and obviously that wasn't the case. But just try to get it done, in a good time, and just make sure that I'm not missing too much. And that was the biggest thing for me. I just wanted to be back with the guys, wanted to be in the room with the group, and you wait all summer for that, and then you have to wait a couple extra days. It was nice to walk into the rink today and have that feeling kind of gone and just being able to focus on hockey.
Yeah, I can imagine that was not a fun few days for Cole waiting for this to get done while training camp was underway. Perfetti was asked something that I think everyone was sort of asking, and then why did this take so long?
Just, I think just trying to find a number that worked for both sides. I think, obviously it's the business and my first time through it all, so I was kind of learning as we went along, and I think just trying to find like I said, a number that's going to work for both sides, that both sides are happy, and I think we found that.
Is it tough at all, Cole, to separate the business from personal and not take any of this personally? Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke last week about how he'd love to give you the moon, he said, if he could. Yeah,
I mean, obviously, you have to understand it's a business, and they're not just gonna give away money for no reason. It's simple. It's everyone understands that, and so it's just trying not to take it personal. Obviously, where you stand compared to other guys, and you obviously want to be in that range, and so I think just trying to, like I said, find a number that works for both sides. Be happy. Get to play hockey again, so that's the biggest thing. Just get to be at the rink, and yeah, it was definitely a learning process, and just say it's glad it's over with. And
all right, Cole was also asked about what he's been doing for the last few days. Mike mentioned that he did stay in Winnipeg. Here's Perfetti on a skating here during the negotiations while the rest of the team was on the ice at the Hockey for All Center.
Yeah, I was just training here, and then found a good group of guys to skate with, and was working out, and so yeah, I was able to have a group of guys and stay on the ice, and went out there today and didn't feel a step behind or anything. So it was good. It was able to skate 4 or 5 times. So it was good. Good what I did, and was lucky enough to find a good group.
All right, Cole Perfetti, the Winnipeg Jets, after signing his contract and returning to training camp today. Here's what he had to say about the 2-year deal that he ended up signing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think goes without saying. Now it's ball, you just got to go play for 2 years. I think that's what a bridge deal is. You have 2 more years to prove yourself, and go show what you can do on the ice. I think, I'm going to use this year to try and take a big step in my game and hopefully play as good as I can and as good as I can for this team and take that next step. And then, a bridge deal is all about, I wouldn't say betting on yourself, but I would just say an extra 2 years to go prove, what kind of player you are, what you can do for this organization. And that's my goal every day, is just to go be the best player that I can be and revisit this in 2 years.
Well, and as Perfetti mentioned, there were some real highs last season for him and also a few lows in the second half. He talked about if he feels he has something to prove this year.
100%. I think obviously wasn't too pleased with how it went personally for me down the stretch. I think, but I think last year, all things considered, still was a pretty decent year. I think started off really strong and proved that I can produce in this league. And obviously, it didn't go like that the whole year, but I think just going to use that as motivation, take the good from it, and obviously take the learning curve and try to just be the best that I can be. I think it was a great summer back home. Training was great. Feel really good coming on the ice, and then obviously those skates before camp, I felt fantastic with the guys, and today was a good day. So just trying to get better every day and take what happened last year and just build off it and just try to be the best player.
All right, so Cole Perfetti on having something to prove. The confidence, I think, was something that, people, myself, worried about Cole as to where it was when he did struggle during the second half of the season. Certainly sounds like he's coming into camp with a lot of confidence. Here's Perfetti on just the importance of having that confidence when he's out on the ice.
Confidence is huge in this league, I think. When you're confident in your game and your ability and yourself, then you're going to, carry that confidence and swagger onto the ice, and you're going to make more plays. You're going to feel better on the ice. So having that confidence from the get-go, I think, is big. It's huge for the mental side of it, and then you're just going to go out and play your game. And I think that's the biggest part for me is this year I just got to go do my thing, play my game, what got me here to this point. It's really nice to hear that. Obviously, you want that opportunity. Everyone wants more. And I think that's why you have that's the competitive edge in everyone. So it's great to hear that. Obviously, the opportunity is going to be there, and now I just got to make the most of it.
And one more for Perfetti. Probably a bit of a trying time. First time he'd been through this. He just talked about the communication with his family and close ones throughout this process leading to last night.
Yeah, I think obviously my family was with me throughout the whole process too. They're on my side and just wanted whatever was best for me, whatever I wanted to do. They just wanted to make sure that I was happy and make sure that whatever decision we made as a family and as a group, that it was going to be the best for us as a whole. And so I think they were super thrilled last night. It was a great feeling to be able to celebrate that over the phone, I guess. But it was great to just accomplish that. It's pretty cool to do that, and pretty grateful for that.
All right, so there's Cole Perfetti from today after his first practice of the season, after signing his deal last night with the Winnipeg Jets. And Reem, he sounds like he is both relieved, also excited to show what he can do, and most importantly, just wants to get out there and with his teammates and get ready to drop the puck on the season October 9th in Edmonton.
Yeah, it seemed like it was, I don't want to say hurting him, but he really wanted to be on the ice with his teammates. He put in all this work over the summer, to show that he can play a full 82-game season and be at his best. And for him not to be able to be out there, I don't know, maybe a bit disappointing, but hey, they didn't miss too much time, missed a week. Probably wouldn't have played in those preseason games anyways, maybe would have played in one of them. But hey, he's there for the special teams practice today. People are saying in chat, well, now that the deal's done, what are we going to speculate on now? It's all speculation's all over. And I said, no. We're going to talk about what line he's going to play on, line combinations.
Power play units.
Yeah, power play units, what the next contract is going to be in 2 years. We've got 2 years to talk about this RFA deal coming up, Hustlers. So plenty more speculation 24/7 here at Winnipeg Sports Talk. That's what we do. But also talk about what happened today, and great conversation with Mike about the lines, about the practice today. Interesting note about the penalty kill. But the big news, Perfetti, contract's done. I think we can clear out our schedule now on Thanksgiving. No last minute deal happening.
No trip to Grand Forks to the Target produce section.
Yeah, you don't have to go to Grand Forks now. So the deal's done. Very happy. I think everyone seems to be happy, and who wouldn't be? And the teammates did get around to him at the skate, give a couple stick taps for the 2-year, $3.25 million contract.
Yeah,
Sorry,
time to get the word
AAV.
for Perfetti and the rest. Yes, the AAV. It'll be a $3.5 million qualifying offer, with $3.5 being the salary next season for Cole Perfetti. All right, you mentioned lines and line combos. I'm going to get over to the Coolbet lines right now before we head out to Assiniboia Downs and talk to Darren Dunn. But gang, if you tuned in late, tonight is the night. Our second online poker tournament with Edmonton Sports Talk, Winnipeg Sports Talk, and the Lock Shop. We're doing it over at coolbet.com. If you go to my Twitter, Winnipeg Sports Talk X, you'll see a tweet with just the instructions. But basically what you're going to want to do is go to Coolbet, click on poker, download the poker software. I think that's definitely the best way to do it. The program is great. And then when you go in, click on tournaments. You can just search Lock, and the Lock Shop will come out. It starts at 9 p.m. tonight, Winnipeg time, 8 p.m. in Edmonton. It's $30 to enter, 20 euros. There is a $100 bounty on my head, on Dustin Nielsen, on Matthew Iwanek, and none other than the second place finisher in the first tournament, Michael Remis. So there you have it. Open poker at Coolbet, download or play in the browser, filter, search Lock, registering it, click apply, and then register for the event. And we will see you at 9 p.m. And again, the first person that takes out me, $100, Remis, $100, and so on for the 4 bounties that are out there. We had such a great time the first time doing this. Cannot wait to get it going tonight. While we're at Coolbet, talking about the poker tourney, we've got lines for the CFL this week. The Bombers opened as 5-point favorites. It's now 4.5, minus 227 on the money line. MBT will be starting at quarterback for the Edmonton Elks. The Ticats opened up as 8-point underdogs in BC. That one's dropped already to 7. Saskatchewan opened as 2.5-point favorites. They're now 3-point favorites at home to the Red Blacks. And Ottawa's just announced that Jeremiah Masoli is starting this game. And then the final game, Saturday, Alouettes, Argos, Montreal, a 2-point road favorite against the Toronto Argonauts. CFL futures are also up. And we've got the Grey Cup winner. We've also got CFL MOP numbers. Cody Fajardo is the favorite at minus 286, a clear favorite. The next two are Vernon Adams and Nathan Rourke, both at 1150. Neither of them are winning this award. Brady Oliveira's next at 14-1. I think there's reason to think that we might be talking about Brady as a legit MOP candidate by the end of the year. Bo Levi Mitchell, if the Ticats come back and make the playoffs, he's over 4,000 yards. He's by far the number 1 quarterback in the league by numbers. Bo's going to get some run. And I will say this, if Saskatchewan can run the table in their final few games and potentially host the West semi, I think Trevor Harris has some legs. Obviously, Zach at 60-1. I think Brady will get it from the Bombers based on the season. Stanback's had a very good year, 60-1, but he's sort of shadowed by the 2 quarterbacks there, Justin McInnes and Milligan at 35-1. But if you do want to put a little marker in on the CFL MOP odds, that is up there right now. The NFL's up. And again, thank you to James Cook. When James cooks, everybody eats. The Lock Shop ate last night. Patty's pick of James Cook rounded up our plus 1125 house callers parlay. What a weekend it was in the Lock Shop. Check it out, noon, daily, over on Edmonton Sports Talk. CFL picks on Thursday. NFL best bets on Friday. And President's Cup odds are up as well, if you're getting ready for that. Speaking of President's Cup, I will be there throughout the weekend. Check Twitter, the Coolbet Twitter, X and whatnot from Winnipeg Sports Talk for some content from Montreal. Cannot wait for that. And of course, the Breezy Bend Golf Report for the rest of this week will be focusing on this massive event on Canadian soil. If you are thinking about a long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses, Breezy Bend is the spot. Give the clubhouse a call and talk to our pal Corey Johnson for more information on that, or go to breezybend.ca for more membership information for the 2025 golf season. Pretty nice weather, though. I'm going to squeeze in a few more rounds at Breezy before it's all said and done. And hey, a big shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake on an amazing season. They're just wrapping it up again. Had such a great time up earlier in August at Aikens Lake. If you're thinking about the 2025 season and amazing, whether it be a personal or a corporate event, Aikens is the spot where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg at a unique and amazing fly-in fishing destination where, as great as the fishing is, the hospitality is even better. Find out more information on booking for 2025 online at aikenslake.com. All right, it is the final day of live racing. Coming off my record-breaking triactor win on Wednesday, Remo and I are fired up for the last day. Huge jackpot high five prize must go tonight. $236,000 in the pot already. That's going to explode. Could be beyond $1 million. But to wrap the season and to get the details on this massive payout tonight, let's bring in CEO of ASD, our pal Double D, Darren Dunn.
Double D, always great to have you out here, and congratulations on a great season, ending a little later than we originally thought, but weather's beautiful, and it's a great night to get out and see the ponies one more time with a lot going on at the track. But welcome, and just you're going into the final night. How, when you look back at this season after tonight's racing, how will you look back at 2024?
Oh, probably with a big sigh. You know, first of all, let me just also capture your comments there. Gorgeous, gorgeous night. Thank you, Lord, there for the chance to have the ponies go to post one more time under crystal blue skies, very warm weather. And, you know, it's, to your point, the meet did get extended. It's been, you know, one for the books, but I've said that before. I mean, I have a library. I mean, I've said one for the books so many times. But, you know, captured with some unusual bumps along the way against a backdrop of some tremendous success. So bumps along the way. Leading trainer using a legal medication, but was administered in the wrong amount. Got literally a season-long suspension. Wow. Okay, our largest stable, 50-55 horses. Now, congratulations to Lee Delaronde, who stepped in on very short notice and is going to win his first ever leading trainer title. And I'm going to present him with an award that well-deserved tonight for multiple leading owner Henry Witt, based out of Texas. At the same time, we had this bizarre anemia, equine anemia situation that created a federal quarantine for 45 days, basically putting our horses in almost like a COVID-like bubble. No horses in, no horses out, trapped our field size, forced me to adjust our calendar live against the backdrop. So, you know, people had already made bookings. Maybe it was an anniversary, maybe it was a facility rental event, et cetera, et cetera. You were coming out, treating your best customers. So to adjust our calendar is not an easy walk in the park. A lot of people to involve, regulatory approval required federally, provincially, et cetera. But this race meet was supposed to end a week ago. Anyways, we got through that just in time for Manitoba Derby. We missed out on participating in the Western Canadian Triple Crown, an event we had created a couple of years ago. And, you know, so those were some body blows. But having said that, huge crowds this year. Wagering's up in, you know, small single digits, but coming off, Hustler, you know, year over year over year over year on a 4-year run here of year over year increases. That's hard to do in any business. So thank you to our customers out there, both locally and worldwide. We continue to strengthen those ties with our good friends down under in Australia. And there's some very interesting door knocking we have been doing over the race meet that we hope comes to fruition to be able to announce next spring, as we're looking to get into the Asian market, Malaysia, etc. Certainly a gaming market, and one that has a huge interest in horse racing. And we may be sending this proud Manitoba, Assiniboia, Winnipeg signal even further across the world next year. But that's to be determined. Tonight, shout out to Praven Badri as well in the saddle. I can't just acknowledge Lee Delaron for his title win. Praven Badri's going to win his second leading rider title. Phenomenal job in the saddle. Very deserved young man. And so a lot of positives leading up to the Pick 5 bet that everybody's talking about across North America and the world, and that Hustler, you're going to take down, to my understanding.
Well, you know what? Listen, if I can keep the momentum coming from my greatest pick in my long horse betting career from last Wednesday, I'm here for it. I just quickly want to thank you, Sharon. I mean, the job that you and your staff does is impeccable. I know you did have some challenges this year, but every time we went out, just had an awesome time, and we saw those crowds grow. And you mentioned the bottom line, the numbers to the track. I mean, what you guys did to pivot during COVID has, I think, fundamentally changed the health of the track, and we've seen that floor rise and now the ceiling rise even more, and that is just fantastic for the horse racing industry here in Manitoba. So we come to tonight, and this isn't just a normal night. This is the final night of the racing season. You guys put out the press release yesterday, 9-race card, which is a hell of a way to finish it up, but also some mandatory payouts. What can you tell us? What's unique about tonight? And as far as these mandatory payoffs and the jackpot Pick 5, what do we need to know about maybe getting in and having a little bit of a lotto ticket, if you will, and a massive payday?
It is. That's exactly, well said, Hustler. Like, it is a lotto ticket situation here. The real focal point tonight, outside of obviously our equine stars and those in the saddle 6 feet in the air, is the jackpot Pick 5. It starts on race number 5. You got to pick 5 winners in a row. If you are the only person who picks those 5 winners in a row, I mean, all bets are off. You book your winter vacation, and by the way, book it for months. There's the building carryover from Manitoba Derby Day night, 236,528 of basically just free money, slush money that has accumulated, and it's got to be paid out tonight. Traditionally, when we've had this, it's attracted over $1 million in additional wagering, so we're hoping that is the case tonight. If you're the only ticket, you could literally, for 20 cents, take home $1 million plus. Now, having said that, there's going to be a lot gunning for this, so get a piece of it. I mean, just get those 5 home. You can do it with a 20-cent wheel without getting too complicated and into the weeds, but basically for a fractional piece, you can take a run at this, and a pretty hefty run at it without running up your wagering tab a lot. And maybe you get 5, you get a long shot or 2 in there, and you grab a chunk for $5,000, $3,000, $10,000. There's just a ton of money that's going to be paid out tonight from races 5 through 9. And so that's really the highlight outside of, as I mentioned, the horses, including tonight on the track. Magic Tiger, our Gold Cup winner, is back on the track. Race number 6 tonight's got some of the better horses on the ground. So, a lot going on. Our focus is on that jackpot Pick 5. It will be paid out tonight no matter what. It's just a question of how many win. The more the win, of course, it dilutes down. But this could be a very, very nice payoff. And technically speaking, you could be the only person to do it. And then you take everything home.
Hope Kirk and Stretch have their Sunday best for the YouTube show and are ready for maybe get a haircut this afternoon, because there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on those two guys tonight. I mean, an event like this with a payout like this brings people in that might not even be normal ASD bettors in online from around the world.
So true. 100% true. It will, I mean, I kid you not, our racing signal goes all across Canada, all across the United States, all across Mexico, all across Europe. Not a great time zone, to be perfectly honest with you, but hey, the Beaver Cleaver Monday to Friday, doesn't really exist anymore. So there's a lot of shift work. So we'll get some European money in there. And as I mentioned, very, very heavily followed in Australia. Tabcorp, their number 1 distribution betting platform in Australia that we worked very hard to develop. So to your point, a ton of eyeballs on the bet, on Assiniboia Downs, on Winnipeg, on Manitoba, and that benefits us all. So we hope that safely comes to fruition. Getting those horses across the wire is all that matters to me. I don't wager on them, quite obviously, but having said that, we have some high expectations for how things are going to go down tonight, and hoping people remember that the horses are out to pasture after tonight. We're open year round. 140 VLTs, simulcast racing from all over the world as well. Starts on the East Coast around 11 in the morning, Belmont Park, Gulfstream Park down in Florida, moves through the Midwest, finishes in California, and then ultimately back down under with Australia racing, wrapping up around 11 o'clock each day. So every day but Christmas, and Christmas parties, facility rentals galore. We'll be very, very busy, and that's, again, great for the economy of Manitoba, which is, as a nonprofit, our primary focus to create revenue generation for this fine province we reside in. And but last chance to dance. Let's go. 7:30 first post. Jackpot pick 5. 9 races. It'll be a lot of fun. And as mentioned early on, the weather's cooperating. So amen to that.
Yeah, there's no better place to be than at the track tonight. If you're not at the track, you can, like Remis and I do every day on the show, bet on the HPIBet.com site and app. I'm seeing right now the pick 5 carryover is over $236,000. That is going to go up significantly.
Yeah.
And I guess when we're going to do this, if you're doing this online, we just move to race 5. When you go to bet, you've got that pick 5 and then 20 cents, 60 cents, $1, whatever you want, and then queue it up, pick your horses, and pray for 5 races tonight. Pick them and pray.
Yeah, that's ultimately it, right? Literally, get on your knees and start looking to the sky. But 20-cent wheel is the best way to go for sure. Maximum amount of combinations, and still could return a quality piece. Hey, if everybody gets it, the favorites roll in. Obviously, not going to pay as much, but just takes a few that are not predicted in the program. And Stretch and Kurt, as you mentioned, a lot of eyeballs going to be taking in. So ASD Live goes at 6:45. What a phenomenal precursor! Those guys eat, breathe, etc. ASD racing like nobody out at the racetrack. So, and they genuinely want to beat each other, and they want to give you winners. So that is a must do tonight. 6:45. Take in their 15-minute preview, and then start handicapping. And I cannot believe that wouldn't give you an elevated chance on taking home some, as you like to say, a little shekel, a little love.
Yeah, well, as I said, it's we had the biggest win in WST history last week. Still buzzing from it after realizing that it happened yesterday when we were going to do our picks. And what better way to finish off the live racing season with maybe another winner? Cannot wait for tonight, Darren. From Michael and myself, thank you guys for the support of Winnipeg Sports Talk and all of your staff. It's a great operation. Already looking forward to next season. But tonight, let's finish it off with a bang. Have a great one this evening, and then hopefully you and the staff get a few days off.
Just a few. Amen, brother. Love it. Thanks for the well wishes, and appreciate your support, Michael's as well. Have a good one, gents, and grab that cash tonight.
Post time tonight, 7:30 p.m., final night of live racing at Assiniboia Downs.
All right, great stuff with our pal Double D. Remis, it has been... Listen, I really thought that this was going to come down to today before the incredible revelation yesterday about the big win on Wednesday. So there's not maybe a lot of drama about our head-to-head battle this year, and I may have the belt. This is a very fun night to place a few bets at the track. So let's do our regular 20, and then I'm adding in, how can we not take a swing at an extra $236K in this jackpot high 5?
Yeah, the pick 5, very fun. So people are asking, how do you do that? Go to race 5 and you go place bet, and then you go to the pick 5 and go there. So 20 cents, throwing a bunch of different combinations. So I'll be tuned in for race 5 tonight.
Yeah, when you get on there, you'll start it there, and then when you pick 5, there's the 5 races, and just each time you click it, you can add horses to each one. We said, well, let's do that last. As far as our picks, do you have race 1 or 2? I'm starting in race 3.
Oh, you told me we were doing 1 to 4. So.
Oh, I did 3 and 4, and then I ended up adding race 6 and 8 afterwards, just because I was feeling frisky.
Okay, so I have race 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, yeah, you fire the first 2.
What do we have here? Race, I just did a bunch of guys to place. Horse 3, Phenomenal Joe to place race 1. And then race 2, I've got horse 4, High Press, 2 place.
All right, I started off with my good old $1 triactor box. There's only 5 horses in this race, but it seems like there's 3 clear horses and then the others. Although Lieutenant Norm's had a good season. But anyways, I'm going 2, 3, 4, Ratliff City, Lab Rat, and Ice Storm on the old $6 bet for the $1 Triactor box. What about you in 3 and 4?
Lieutenant Norm, 2 place. Here.
Ooh, that would blow my Triactor. Race number 4, 3-5 exactor box. I've got 5, no show, no call, the heavy favorite. I'm going with the big time long shot, Charmingly Wit.
Okay.
3-5.
I will go to 2-5 Golden Diversion and no show, no call in the box.
Nice. Okay. I also put down a $2 exacta box, 3-6 in race number 6. Jeff Fa and Run Today. And I did a $6 or a $1 Triactor box, $6 bet for race 8. 1, 2, and 8. Happy Camper, the Calabrese Kid, and Giant 1. All right, so now for the jackpot high 5. You click on race 5, and when you make your bet, you've got your option for the pick 5. I put it in as 20 cents. So like Darren was saying, you can get 20-cent combos. I'm taking 3 horses in each race. I've usually taken a couple of the favorites and maybe one that might be a little bit bigger odds. So in race 5, 1, 2, 4. In race 6, I've got 1, 3, 6. In race 7, I'm going 4, 5, 6. Race 8, 2, 7, 9. And then in the final race, I'm not taking the favorite. I'm taking 7, 8, and 9. So 20-cent bet, 3 horses per race, $48.60 is the damage on that for a hopeful piece of like $1 million prize.
Wouldn't that be cool? What a nice end to racing season that would be for you, Hustler. So congrats on the big win.
Well, you can do it too. What do you have? What do you have cooking for the?
I didn't do 3. I did 2 on the first 2 because there were some big favorites. I did 2, 5, 3, 7, 3, 4, 6, 2, 4, 8, 3, 6, 8. So a bit different than you.
Beautiful.
I think. Yeah. So
if you do go to the track tonight, I would suggest grabbing the program. I would also suggest listening to Kirk and Stretch. They'll start it off at 6:30 on the YouTube channel and go through every race. Nobody's got better insight into the horses at Assiniboia Downs than Kirk and Stretch. You can also watch that on YouTube. And then listen, if you want to do this at home, we play through hpibet.com. Great platform and service. But again, get your bets in. I would even do it like if you're out at the track in the second or third race, because it'll get crazy around the windows before race 5. And you're going to want to give yourself some time. I just kind of pick your horses that you like beforehand, jot it down in the program, and then head up there. And good luck to everyone. Already over $236,000 that is part of a mandatory payout tonight, along with what should be an avalanche of cash being thrown at this mandatory payout tonight. Huge thanks again to the great people at Assiniboia Downs. Another great season. Cannot wait to work with them again next year and get back out to the track. All right, that is going to do it for us. Do not forget, tonight, join us, the poker tourney. $30 entry, $100 bounties on my head, Remis's head, Dusty, and Mattawanek from Edmonton Sports Talk. If you go to our X accounts, there's a link there with CoolBet, but just go to CoolBet, click on poker, download it, go to tournaments, and register for tonight's Lock Shop tourney. We will see you 9 p.m. It gets going. A lot of pressure on Remis to match his incredible performance the last time we did it, finishing second overall in the entire tourney. I hope to get in. I got bounced on the bubble last time. I'm planning on sticking around a little longer. And again, bottom line, we just had a great time. And I'm hoping many of you can join us. That's at 9 p.m. tonight. I'm on a plane tomorrow morning out to Montreal for President's Cup. Remis and Connor will hold it down tomorrow. I will pop in at some point Thursday and Friday. I didn't realize the President's Cup actually starts on Thursday with matches, unlike the Ryder Cup that goes Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Check Coolbet as well if you want to get in on any advanced wagers on the Prez Cup. But that is going to do it for us today. Thanks to Dave Pagnotta, Mike McIntyre, Darren Dunn, and make sure to join the fellas tomorrow as they'll have the latest from the Winnipeg Jets and get ready for home preseason game number 2 at Canada Life Centre. Once again, a big thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. See you tonight for the poker tourney, and keep an eye on my social media accounts at Hustlerama as well as at Sports Talk WPG for some content from Montreal throughout the President's Cup. We're going to send you over to Kenny and Rennie right now. The fellas are firing it up for a little pop-up show, so we'll send you to Sean and Ken. Say hi, tell them the WST crew sent you, and have a great one tomorrow with Michael and Connor right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at Winnipeg Sports